Hey there, I'm Lily, and brace yourselves because at the ripe age of 28, I'm officially divorced from my ex husband, Henry. Yeah, you heard it right. Just a few months ago. Can you believe it? I met Henry back in college, sharing classes and all that. But hold on, it gets wild. We started chatting innocently. Next thing you know, we're head over heels for each other, cruising through what seemed like the perfect relationship. And then, boom, the whole marriage thing? Kaput. Shocking, huh? There was one problem, and that was Henry's mother, Victoria. For some reason, she hated me and she constantly tried to break Henry and me up. I would talk to Henry about the discomfort she made me feel, but he would never really do anything about it. He hated having to go against his mother, especially because he had only her when growing up. I finally reached a breaking point and decided to brush off her toxic antics. She had this annoying habit of nitpicking every little thing I did, and believe it or not, she'd even criticize aspects of me that she had zero clue about. I suspected Henry was spilling the beans to her, which just fueled my frustration. Our arguments escalated, but after a heated showdown, Henry caved in and finally put a lid on sharing my personal details with her. We dated for about 3 years before getting married. Victoria realized that her words were no longer affecting me, so she began trying to influence Henry to divorce me. That never worked, and we went in low contact with her for a little while. During that time, both of us got promotions at work. However, I was earning a little more than Henry, so we split our expenses 60-40 with me paying the highest portion. We were happy as a couple, but as an individual, I began to feel like I wasn't doing enough. I needed to pick up a hobby. I had always been rather good with design, be it interior or otherwise, but if I needed to do something on the side, I figured I needed it to be something I could work on from the comfort of my home. I had this light bulb moment, and guess what popped into my head? Graphic design. Without a second thought, I dived into it, and lo and behold, turns out I've got some serious skills. Quietly, I enrolled in a couple of courses and snagged some top-notch equipment on the down low, all while keeping it hush-hush from Henry. I'm all about keeping my projects under wraps because, truth be told, I'm a bit of a project junkie, and not all of them pan out. The only person I told about my new venture in graphic design was my best friend, Sophie, so I've taken up an interest in something. Oh, is this another one of your many hobbies that you'll lose interest in pretty fast? Hopefully not. I mean, I hope to get paid really well through it. You're going to get paid through it. Finally, don't hold back. Spill. Well, you know how I have an eye for design and art? Don't tell me you're planning on painting. No, no, that's way too tiring. But I've begun graphic designing. That's a wonderful idea. That's actually a very profitable field. Yeah, I took a couple of courses and I want to start working. You know what? I might be able to start a business. Whoa, I don't know about starting it by myself. I was thinking more working with a firm. No, that's boring, and not very different from what you're doing. You lose interest pretty fast, but I have a couple of friends who also are starting businesses of their own. I could introduce you to them and you could help them design their logos and websites. That would be amazing. The people that Sophie introduced me to happened to be these rich people who had no problem throwing away money on a risk. As in, I had no other qualifications and I was very much a beginner. But they liked my work a lot, and they introduced me to many other businesses and individuals. Slowly but surely, I began to earn a good amount of money through my sidekick. It was a great relief because now Henry and I could live a lot easier. I began saving up little by little so I could buy Henry something nice I hadn't told him, and whenever I wanted to, it felt like he never wanted to talk. I quickly realized something was up with him, but he never seemed to want to talk about it. The first month I noticed something was off was when Henry told me he had spent all of his money on some investments a week after he got paid. We did get into a little bit of an argument, but we got through that month. I pulled in a couple of extra hours at work, and everything was all right. The next month, Henry said the same thing again, and I was beyond upset. I was baffled. How could he blow through that much money in the blink of an eye? Frustration got the best of me, and I let loose a barrage of not-so-nice words. Sure, I regretted it afterward, but I thought maybe a dose of tough love would knock some responsibility into him. Yet, shockingly, the very next month, he pulled the same stunt. I was fed up. By then, I had mastered the art of caution, so I just put in extra hours to make up for it. Anyway, aside from my actual job, my graphic designing side job was also going great. And in fact, that was what was paying the bills more than anything. But when Henry didn't have money again for the first month, I was done with him. How would you let this happen again? Do you literally learn nothing? Look, I'm just trying to get as much return as I can and I'm messing up a little. It's not a little when you're investing and losing your entire pay. You have your money, right? We'll just do what we've been doing for so long. No, no, I'm tired of this. I will not support you this month. You figure out your own expenses. What? You can't do that. Well, you can't gamble away all your pay either. But here we are. So what? I'm just supposed to starve and take public transport. There will be food at home because I'll ensure that all our shared expenses are covered. You have to take public transport because you can't pay for your own gas. So you want me to actually look poor? Taking public transport is in no way a reflection of your status. Stop being entitled. If you wanted to drive your own car, you should have thought twice about gambling away all your money. You're a selfish and ruthless person. How could you do this to your husband? What about what you're doing to me? I've been working extra hours just to cover up your losses. Can't you at least try to see my perspective? Nah, you've got zero understanding of where I'm coming from. I'm out of here. I can't handle dealing with you right now. And Henry? Well, he up and left, destination unknown. After that, I couldn't make heads or tails of his bizarre behavior. It was a total curveball. Suspicion kicked in, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Victoria had her fingers in this mess. So while Henry was off on his mysterious adventure, I played detective and did a bit of snooping around. It didn't take too long to figure out that Henry had been lying to me. I had access to his bank account because he had logged into it on my laptop and had saved the password. He had more than enough money in his account. In fact, when I went through his transactions, I saw that other than the usual amounts of money being debited, there was nothing else. I was very confused at that point. Why had he been withholding his money from me? Why had he been lying? I decided to go through his messages because nothing was making any sense to me. The first person I saw that he had texted was his mom. It was regarding the fight we had before he left. He told her that I had lashed out at him because he refused to give me any money. And Victoria told him, I told you I knew she was behind his change in behavior. She had always been out to get me, but I didn't think that she realized just what kind of fire she was playing with. I scrolled through the rest of their chats, and I found out some things. The first was that Victoria had been incessantly texting Henry about me. She had kept pointing out my negative traits, like me being money hungry and only staying with him for his money. That was hilarious because I was the one who had been contributing the most to our household. The second was that she had been getting to Henry. He began to text about minor things I did that annoyed him. She only enabled and amplified his complaints that explain why Henry was beginning to withdraw from me. To top it all off, they hatched a plan to pull the financial plug on me. Initially, Henry resisted the idea, but thanks to Victoria constantly feeding his complaints, he eventually caved. The decision was made 2 months back. First, he fed her a story about me picking up extra hours, and the following month, he spun a tale of a colossal argument where I apparently unleashed some nasty words. It was like they were tag teaming to cut me off. That was only more fuel to the fire. I was obviously beyond hurt at what I had found out. I didn't know what to do about what I found out, so I decided to go over to my best friend, Sophie's place. Sophie has always been the first person I go to whenever I face any problem, regardless of what time it is. Since I showed up at her place at around 11:30 p.m., unannounced, that obviously raised some alarms for her. She let me in and got me settled in with a glass of wine and asked me what happened. So what's going on? I just found out some disturbing things and I don't know what to do now. All right. Who is this about? Victoria and Henry. Oh, what did they do? So you know how Henry has been gambling away his money on some bogus investments for the last 2 months? Yeah, which was weird, as how did he do it again this month? Yeah, except not really. Huh, what do you mean? Turns out he had his money all this time but has been refusing to give me any money. Hold on, why? That seems so pointless. You've been running the bigger portions of the household expenses, right? Exactly. That's why what he's been doing has been so confusing. Wait, is his mother involved in this? Of course she is. She's been texting him for a while, about all my flaws. For a while now, and even managed to convince him to stop supporting me. And she's clueless about your earnings? Unbelievable. What about Henry? Isn't he sharp enough to see you've been a major financial player? Does he honestly believe your 9 to 5 is covering everything? Apparently, hired help knows how to handle this situation better. It's glaringly obvious, right? Pull the rug out from under him, leave him high and dry, and then drop the divorce bomb when he's at his most vulnerable. Isn't that a little cruel? Lily, he didn't care about that. Why do you care? You know what? You're tired. Maybe you should sleep on it and we can discuss things tomorrow. Sophie was right. I was beyond exhausted. The emotions of the day drained me in every sense, and I wanted nothing more than to fall asleep. Thankfully, the next day was a weekend. Sophie and I put on one of the many movies we had watched many times and fell asleep to it. The next morning, we decided to take a day off from all our troubles and just stayed in bed and watched a couple of movies and shows. We cooked tonight great food and spent a lot of our time just enjoying each other's company. I won't lie. I had to fight with myself to not think about what had happened, but I knew that I needed to take time away if I wanted to deal with it properly. However, that night I got a call from Victoria. I didn't know if I wanted to pick it up, But when Sophie looked over my shoulder and saw who was calling me, she urged me to pick it up. With my heart pounding, I picked up the call. Hello, Victoria. You scum. Wow, what did I do? You only want my son's money, don't you? Excuse me. That's why you've decided to cut off all his expenses, isn't it? No, he's been spending away all his money on his stupid investments. There's only so long that I can support his bad decisions, especially when they affect us. Well, that was all a test. A test? I was only trying to prove to Henry that you were only staying with him for his money, and look at you. You proved my point. Don't you think you overstepped a little too much into our relationship? Who are you to tell me what's right and wrong when you're a gold digger? All right, let's try to turn this ship around. You don't want your marriage to crumble, so here's the plan. A clean break, 50. 50 on everything with Henry. Seriously? Yep, let's see how committed you both are to this. I'll whip up a contract for the both of you, and once those signatures are on paper, you better stick to the script. It's a deal then. Well, all right. If Henry agrees to it, we'll do it. I would also like a copy of that contract. Of course, we'll see you on Tuesday. I couldn't believe that this was what my marriage had come to, but at the same time, I was full of anger. How dare she call me a gold digger? And how dare Henry be okay with that? I had done nothing but support everything he did, even if it meant losses for us. Hell, even when he lied to me, I covered for us. When I told Sophie about what had happened on the call, she began to smile. She helped me realize just how perfect what Victoria had done was. If we split everything evenly, that would mean that our mortgage and other big expenses would have to be split. I knew for a fact that if Henry had to pay for his share of everything, he would have virtually nothing to fall back on. He didn't know about my side hustle because it had started off as a secret. I wanted it to get going properly before I told Henry about it. I also wanted to make enough money to buy Henry something expensive and then surprise him with my new source of income. In that moment, I couldn't be more relieved that I had a solid backup plan. Tuesday rolled around surprisingly fast, and Sophie joined me after we wrapped up our workday, eager to witness the showdown. Back at home, we found Victoria and Henry in the thick of things. Henry buried in his phone, while Victoria, seated next to the lawyer, was scrutinizing his laptop, tossing demands around, presumably negotiating the terms of what I assumed was the contract. Victoria looked at me with disinterest while Henry looked anxious. When he saw me, he tried to communicate with me with his eyes to get us to go talk in the kitchen, but I ignored him. I walked over to Victoria and asked to see the contract. The lawyer moved aside, and I got to see what was written. Like I had expected, everything was meant to be split evenly along with the added rule of not helping the other. If one of them is short on money, I agreed to it. We got the contract printed out, and I signed it. It didn't take long for Henry to start having problems. Initially, Henry and I didn't talk much to each other because I didn't see why I needed to talk to someone who was so willing to see me suffer. But when you live with someone, talking becomes inevitable. Henry also really tried to get me to talk to him. I didn't really bother to answer him at first, but then I got tired of him constantly trying, so I engaged him in conversation. Will you please just talk to me? We can't keep going this way. What do you want me to say to you, Henry? I don't know, but I miss us. Oh, really? Is that why you agreed to sign a contract fully separating off finances? Well, I just wanted to see if you were in it for the money. You know how many problems your mother has caused between us? And you still choose to believe her? Is this really the best solution for you? Hey, don't call my mother problematic. Also, what money do you have to all need? So much? Look, I don't want you to lash out at me, okay? I'm trying to make amends here. There will be no amends until that contract is gone. It's only been 2 weeks since we signed it. I have seen no proof that you aren't here for the money. Well, aren't you a unique character? Listen, if you're facing financial hurdles, just give me a heads up. I'm willing to help. Wouldn't that go against your grand plan? Besides, I'd rather not end up breaching any contract obligations. Why the resistance? You're the one who complicated things. Can we please keep this civil? Sure thing. I could sense Henry grappling with the conflicting perspectives influenced by Victoria and the ones he initially held. The Henry I had married would never have done something so drastic that had even the slightest bit of a chance to harm me. But here he was, obeying every word of his mother's, and he would live to regret it. That month, I had dutifully already paid off all our big loans. So when the next month rolled around, Henry was stuck. I had paid off my share of the loans, and I was living well. Having to pay only half of it freed up my budget by a lot, and that meant that I was able to finally splurge on myself. Sophie and I went out a lot. We went to all these fancy restaurants and drank fancy wines. We went to museums and quaint cafes. Obviously, all of this was getting posted on social media. I invited Henry to join on many occasions, but he always said he couldn't come along because, surprise, surprise, he had no money to. To add to that, my graphic designing sidekick was going so well that I had cut down the hours of my day job to focus more on that instead. I was even contemplating quitting it. Obviously, Henry was struggling a lot. I went as far as to divide even our groceries, so whenever I looked at his side of the pantry fridge, it would almost always be almost empty. A part of me did feel bad for him, but I kept reminding myself that he had brought this on himself. Eventually, Victoria came over to our place. I had been out with Sophie, so I was pretty surprised to see her there. "Oh, hey, Victoria, what brings you here? Don't you try and play innocent right now, huh? I know what you've been doing, and I'm going to call the police on you." "Excuse me, what are you talking about? You've been stealing from Henry, huh? Why in the world would I pull a stunt like that?" "Oh, I know why, because you're plotting revenge. You're fuming that he got you to sign that contract. Meanwhile, my poor son's been battling through a tough month while you're out there swiping his cash and living it up at those posh spots. Hold up! Your kid's got zero cash to swipe. Sure, I despise that contract, but let's not pretend you weren't the puppet master pulling the strings to get us to sign it in the first place. You forced this on us, and now your son is struggling. Liar. I'm calling the police right now. Go ahead. I haven't stolen a cent from your son. How do you have so much money then? Your job doesn't do that much more than Henry's. And from what he's told me, you've cut back more hours. I have another business on the side. A graphic designing one that I plan to surprise Henry with until you've filled his head with garbage. You started your own business without telling me about it. I plan to buy you a car with the money I earned. How much do you make from it? Oh, a lot more than you think. You lied. I didn't do anything. I was trying to do a good thing. And then you ruined it. Since you feel so strongly for your son, maybe you should be the one who supports him. And while we were at this here, I handed the divorce papers to Henry. I have filed for it right after we signed the contract, and had been keeping it with me until the right moment presented itself. Henry stared at me with shock, but I couldn't care less. Victoria would have normally been very happy to see those papers, considering that that had been what she was vying for all this time. But she looked mad instead. Now that she knew what this was costing Henry, I told him that I would be moving out in 3 weeks, and that I would continue to split the remaining amount for the loans. And that was the end of it. Henry attempted to plead his case, but I made it clear that he brought it all upon himself. It's been a few months since the dust settled, and I'm ecstatic to report that I'm free from that toxic relationship. Victoria, you didn't let Henry off the hook without a fight in the divorce proceedings. However, there was nothing for Henry to gain since we had signed a contract that explicitly divided all our assets. He only ended up losing more money since he couldn't keep up with all the mortgage expenses on the house. We sold it, and he moved back in with his mother. My life has only taken a positive turn. My business has been booming, and I've gotten to work with a lot of big brands. It has been a blissful and amazing time for me. I'm just thankful I had a safety net, or else I might have ended up in Henry's shoes. I hope he sees this as a lesson for the future, but then again, that's not my concern anymore.